Shalom. First, I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, double honors to the apostles, the elders, the great millstone that rule well, that taught us truth, and blessings to the elect of the nation of Israel. This is Brother Yakal coming with another lesson, and Lord will be edifying. And in today's lesson, I'm gonna do this probably like once a month. Do a video on Israelite history, because history is very important, man. And our history has been hidden from us. It's been denied from us. All right, but now, because this great awakening, thanks to the Heavenly Father, through His Son, all right, we have this knowledge and we have this truth, and now truth is being declared, man. Okay, and that's in the Bible. But every month I'm going to do a video on Israelite history, and today we're going to do because there's a lot of Edomites, so-called white people, that are getting angry about the truth that parts of history, for example, like the Middle Ages, all right, in Europe, where you had kings and queens and the formation of the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church or the Church of England, they think that that was their history. It's not. It's ours. All right? It's our history. And they've co-opted it. Basically, they've done something called identity theft. All right? Now, why is history important? And I've got some quotes here, but also we're always going to refer it back to the Bible, because that's our source. That's where we get our power from. All right? But I've got a quote here from George Orwell. Now, George Orwell wasn't just the average Edomite man. All right? He used to be a colonial soldier in the British Empire. And he was sent to places like India, and he was disgusted with how the British treated the Indians. All right? And he was more or less like a truth teller. But he said something that was very, very true. And there's multiple quotes about history. And this one really goes to the heart of our history and what happened to us, which is biblical prophecy. All right, George Orwell said, the most effective way to destroy people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of their history. All right, and he's the guy that did, what's it called? Was it 1984? Yeah, let me see. 1984. Yep. Yeah, by George Orwell. Yep, he's the one that did the 1984 film. I think it was, or was it a book? You see here. Yeah, sci-fi thriller. Yeah, it was a film, 1984. And he was going into all the, the things that the elites are doing. All right. So this man was a man of knowledge. Okay, but that quote that he said is absolutely true. It's the most effective way to destroy a people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of their history. Okay. Also, hang on, I've got another quote here. All right, this is from Marcus Garvey. Now, Marcus Garvey was an Israelite man. All right, and he did a quote about history, and he said, "A people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots." Marcus Garvey. And that's absolutely true, and that's what's happened to us. Okay, that's what's happened to us. So every month I'm going to do a video like this lesson on Israelite history. And today, all right, we are going to go into the Black Prince, all right, which is his real name, all right, okay, is Edward of Woodstock. All right, Edward of Woodstock, who was an Israelite man who was He was a royal. He was, I think it was the son of the king. All right, son of King Edward III. All right, all right. Let me read about this. This is Edward of Woodstock from 1330 to 1376, known as the Black Prince. And I'm going to show you that these Edomites are, historians, because they think that this is their history. It's not. All right. There's a lot of debate. Why was he called the Black Prince? And he was called the Black Prince mainly after he died. All right. Known as the Black Prince, was the eldest son of King Edward III and a celebrated English military leader during the Hundred Years' War. Now, the Hundred Years' War was between Israelites in England and Israelites in France. The Anglo-Saxons, and the word Anglo-Saxon means angelic sons of Isaac, versus the Franks, the French, the Israelites in France. All right. He was never king, dying before his father. All right. So he was supposed to inherit the throne, but he died. But achieved fame for victories at Crécy and Poitiers, which was in France, where they were outnumbered. Okay. And just ignore this picture up here, because that's just a whitewash picture. Okay. His nickname, likely, let's hear this, stems from black armor, his shield, or his reputation in France. No, his name, the Black Prince, which was given to him after he died, was because he was a jet black man. All right. And the Bible said, all right, that this would happen because it happened in the past. All right. When we were overtaken by the Greeks, what did they do? They took down our images and they put up their images, i.e. they whitewashed the images. All right. This is in 1 Maccabees 3 and 48. And laid open the book of the law, which is the Bible, wherein the heathen, and the Greeks were heathens, heathens means non-Israelites, had sought to paint the likenesses of their images. Okay. So the heathens, rather than have the images of our people and our patriarchs and so forth, they took it down and they painted the likenesses, of our people in their image, meaning they whitewashed the pictures. All right. And that's what happened in the period that we call the Renaissance period, where whites came back into power. Because the Roman Empire, all right, at the end of the Roman Empire, you had people like Septimius Severus, Diocletian, who were all black Roman emperors. Okay. Constantine the Great, etc. All right. And that's why something called Christianity, Catholicism, was instituted. So are you telling me that whites are called Edomites in the Bible, they ruled the whole Roman Empire, all right, where it went on for hundreds of years, and then when the Roman Empire fell, all right, and we all knew that Rome fell, okay, but before it fell, it kind of transformed itself into what? The Holy Roman Empire, Constantine, the Council of Nicaea, embracing so-called Christianity. So are you telling me that the white Roman Empire ruled for hundreds of years, then when it collapsed, then white people just sprung up again, and then they started to rule in the Middle Ages, and they made the Roman Catholic Church, the Eastern Orthodox Church, the Church of England, they did the Crusades. I mean, they're not, no disrespect to them, they don't even believe in God. How many Edomites, white people today, go to church? How many of them believe in any faith and religion? They advocate for things like, homosexuality and so forth. All right. In the Middle Ages, that was outlawed. Okay. The period of time that we're talking about, that I'm going to show you in this lesson. And that period of time, all right, Edward Woodstock, i.e. the Black Prince, he lived in that time. In that time, those kind of activities were outlawed and there were penalties by death. But in the Roman Empire and the Greek Empire, which was a white people's empire, Edomites' empire, that that kind of wickedness flourished. So once you actually understand and know, all right, the truth of history, all right, your eyes are opened. And this is very important because, all right, like Marcus Garvey said, a person that doesn't know the history is like a tree without roots. So the Greeks did this. They did whitewashing. And in the period of time, the Renaissance, they did the same thing. Now, I'm just going to show a couple of examples. Then we're going to get into learning about Edward, man. All right. Let me just close this. Okay. Let's close this. Because this needs to be, I mean, it's getting them mad. And I can understand it because at the end of the day, they actually believe that. I mean, even some Edomites whites think that the Egyptians were white. I mean, this is ridiculous, you know? Absolutely ridiculous. All right. But we have many examples, okay? I'm going to show you some here of the whitewashing of images. Because it happened then, and it's continued, and they're still doing it. Okay, let's go to pictures here. There you go. And I've got some here as an example here. All right. Plenty here. All of a sudden, this computer doesn't want to work. See, that's Satan there. All right. There you go. All right, let's give you examples of this whitewashing. All right. Good examples. All right. Let's blow this up. These are examples. All right. So the Habsburgs, all right, which is in Germany, was a royal family in the Middle Ages. All right. And in Germany right now, this statue is on the left is still there. All right. He doesn't look like a slave. He looks like royalty. Okay. And there's Habsburgs there as well. All right. But this is what they whitewashed. Okay. And if you look up here, it says Suavi. All right. Suavi. Suavi is means complexion. All right. Dark skin complexion. That was the word for dark skinned people in the Middle Ages. Suavi. They described them as Suavi. All right. Okay, let me show you another example. Okay. Oh, man. All right, let's look at Mozart. This is another good example. On the left, that's the real Mozart. Remember, Mozart was born in the 1700s. And by then, our population dwindled because we had a pandemic in the 1300s that wiped out half the population of Europe. All right, the black population, they call it the Black Death. So that's the real Mozart, but then they whitewashed him. All right. So these are good examples here. Why is it that, I can go on and on. And then we have one of the most famous people, William Shakespeare. All right. Where someone actually, and it was probably an Edomite that did this. All right. That's his real portrait there. And they photocopied it and put it online but in his tomb in Stratford, because he lived in Stratford upon Avon, which is in England, all right, which is a northern town here, in the church, that's his tomb, and that's his bust. Why is it brown skinned? So, I mean, it's just clear, but, the racists, the supremacists, they don't want to, accept this. And again, here you have King James on the left here. All right, that's the real picture, but here's the fake ones of King James and his wife Anne of Denmark. This is all fake. So this is a good example of whitewashing images. Okay, and I can go on and on and on and on and on. All right, more images here. Okay, these are noble black women in the Middle Ages here. All right, and these are things that they're not going to teach you in school. All right, because their job is to lie, and this is what happened. This is why black people have no history, because they whitewash the pictures. So you see what this man is doing. He's taking the picture on the left here, all right, which is a biblical figure here on the left, and he's copying it and making it white. You see? So all of this has been hidden from us, okay? But the Lord said, what's in the dark shall come to light. And Anne Boleyn, they make these, they made a series a few years ago about Anne Boleyn, and they cast a black woman in it, and white people were mad about it. And now they're mad about a black woman being cast in Joan of Arc, but Joan of Arc was black as well. All right, why are they doing it? Because Anne Boleyn was black, you know, and this is the coin that she was, because she was one of Henry VIII's wives. Okay, so you can see the pattern here of deception, and that's their job. Their job is to deceive. The devil, the word devil means what? Deceiver. So you have to understand that this First Maccabees 3 and 48 happened in the past, but it's happened now, and really started in a Renaissance period where white started to come into power. All right, so let's go back. All right, and let's play this video about Edward of Woodstock, whose nickname was the Black Prince. All right, let me play this for you.
Of England, the warrior, history tried to forget. Edward of Woodstock, more famously, the Black Prince. His name once thundered through the courts and battlefields of medieval Europe, feared by his enemies and revered by his allies. But who was this legendary figure? And why does history gloss over a crucial part of his identity? He was a son of kings, a master of war, and by many accounts England's greatest martial mind. Yet, obscured behind the veils of time lingers a perplexing detail, repeated descriptions of him as black, swarthy, and dark-complexioned. Was this merely poetic embellishment, or a historical truth deliberately erased? Today, we delve into the veiled legacy of the Black Prince, a figure both illuminated by glory and shadowed by omission, his rise, triumphs, and enigmatic identity. Born in 1330, Edward of Woodstock was the eldest son of King Edward III. Destined for the throne and groomed for kingship, he was versed in warcraft from youth, leading and commanding forces by his early teens. In 1356, he etched his legend at the Battle of Poitiers. Surrounded and outnumbered, his smaller English force dealt a crushing blow to the superior French army, capturing none other than his royal cousin, King John II of France. The battlefield became not just a site of conquest, but an international, family affair. Turning chaos into conquest, his legacy was etched in blood and brilliance, his battlefield genius becoming legend in his lifetime, a hidden truth beneath the armor. But why? Was he called the Black Prince? The conventional narrative claims it stemmed from his feared tactics, black hair or black armor. Yet numerous contemporary accounts describe him in explicit physical terms. Historical records don't just mention the name, they describe him, swarthy like his father Edward III, black as if forged in battle, darkened in the face like warriors of the southern kingdoms. French sources called him Le Prince Noir, the Black Prince, not as a metaphor, but in recognition of his dark appearance. Chroniclers of his time didn't use black metaphorically. Descriptions of a dark-skinned prince repeated across sources. So why is this historical fact hidden? A king who never was. Edward never ascended the throne. Struck by a mysterious illness, he died at 45, not on the battlefield, but within the quiet halls of Westminster. His crown passed to his son, Richard II. Edward of Woodstock changed history through strategy, steel, strength, and sheer will. Yet, the shadows around his identity still whisper from the past. His tactical brilliance and martial legacy are uncontested. Yet the portraits, written descriptions, and lore all converge around the fact that England's Black Prince may have been blacker than the history books are willing to confess. The call to question history. Why do we sanitize history's most compelling figures? Has Edward of Woodstock's legacy been whitewashed literally and figuratively? What can his story teach us about the other identities lost to time and the erasures history chose to forget? Let's rediscover the faces they tried to erase. The truth isn't lost. It's waiting to be remembered. If this moved you or made you question what else history has buried, subscribe for more forgotten truths and overlooked legacies.
So as you can see, and this is a good channel that you can look up, it's called the Swavi channel. Alright, now if you look up the word Swavi, alright, I just clicked it on Google. Swavi, it means what? Dark complexion. Alright, so the Black Prince, he was described that way because he was a so-called black man. Alright, so this is the kind of history that the kind of deception that they've done. Alright, why is this important? Well, the reason why it's important, because the truth is important, and the Heavenly Father gave us instructions, and one of them is in Job 8 and 8. Alright, remember, if we go to, hang on, let's see, here, alright, one of the things that would happen to us as a people is that we would discontinue from our heritage, alright, and that's what the slave trade did, and I've done it in other videos before, I might touch on it again. Slavery happened in Europe. The black population, the Israelite population in Europe, alright, was weakened because of the pandemic called the Black Death that lasted 7 years, and it killed half of the population in England. And what population? Not the poor white population, because whites lived among us, but majority they were separate from us. We didn't want anything to do with them. Okay, but then when we had this pandemic, the Black Plague or the Black Death they called it, it was only killing us. So it weakened our numbers, and then after it subsided, it lasted 7 years. All right, it was from like 1348, and it lasted 7 years. All right, we had a labor shortage, so that's when we started to allow whites to be our bakers, our publicans, our serfs, you know, to work, to do the lower paid kind of jobs. And basically that pandemic kept coming back in the 1400s and the 1500s and even the 1600s, and it was only killing our population. That was the Heavenly Father's way of saying, listen, your time of ruling Europe is up. Okay, that's exactly what happened. And then we had wars with whites, lost those wars, and they deported us to the colonies as slaves. And that's when they did all the whitewashing of the pictures. All right, so I'll do another video on that because I've done it before. But Jeremiah 17:4, it says, and thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage, all right, from your heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in a land which thou knowest not. And where was primarily we were deported to? America and the colonies in the Caribbean. We didn't know those lands. All right, for ye have kindled a fire in my anger which shall burn forever. All right, and why did the Heavenly Father do that? Because we were being wicked. Even in the Middle Ages, we were wicked. We wasn't keeping the laws of God. The Roman Catholic Church never taught us to do that. Okay? It was a normal thing to eat pork back then. I mean, it was absolute madness. All right? So that's what happened. We discontinued from a heritage. But why is it important? If we go to Job 8 and 8. For I inquire, I pray thee, of the former age, and prepare thyself to the search of their fathers. All right? Prepare thyself for the search of thy fathers. Verse 9. For we are but yesterday, and know nothing, because our days upon the earth are a shadow. Okay? Now, if you read that in the NLT to make it plainer, Job 8 and 8, it says, just ask the previous generation. Pay attention to the experience of our ancestors. So we have to pay attention to the history of our ancestors. Okay? All right? Verse 9. For we were born but yesterday, and know nothing. Our days on the earth are as fleeting as a shadow. Yeah, because we haven't got a lot of time on the planet Earth. And to live and to die in this wicked kingdom without knowing your great history is a travesty and a shame. So that's why I'm going to be doing these videos, man. All right. So I didn't want to make it too long. I'm sorry it went on a bit long. All right. So when you hear of Edward the Black Prince, okay, and I'm not saying that he was a righteous, guy, etc. All right, I'm not saying that, because he partook in something called the 100 Years' War, and that war was brutal. I will touch on that in the next video, because that war, 100 Years' War, going back and forth, the Anglo-Saxons, the Israelites in England fighting the Franks in France, that led up to a woman that we know, all right, they laud as a hero, called Joan of Arc. All right, that's where she comes in. So in the next one, I'm going to do a video about the 100 Years' War and Joan of Arc as well. So this was Edward of Woodstock, all right, known as the Black Prince. All right, I want to give all praises to Yahweh Bashim Yal Shai, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well, that taught us this truth, and blessings to the elect and nation Israel. I pray you are edified to the next lesson. Shalom.